testosterone. What is it for? Why do we need it?
If I did a study on Ryan, I could have said pizza is a solution for erectile dysfunction.
It's not a case of like X causes Y. It's almost like a bit of a cycle because
What can I do with my lifestyle that is going to help my ability to produce testosterone?
there are people that are functioning low testosterone and they feel great, but the numbers look terrible.
What would you say are the common things people do that tank their testosterone? I'm Ryan Stevens.
Dr. Taylor Waters.
I'm Ben Oliver.
Welcome to the Superhuman Show, yeah?
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Superhuman Show with your hosts, Ben Oliver, the Doc, Taylor Waters, and Ryan Stevens.
You got confused then because you
I
usually
normally
always
go the
go
other
that
round,
way
yeah.
round. Yeah. You're
Quick-
in third place now,
Quick
right?
down. Yeah. So, topic of today, testosterone.
How to tank it.
What is it? How to tank it?
And how to really send
And how
it
to
through the
take
roof.
it.
And how to take it.
How to tank it. Be a pub landlord.
Well, it's a bit of a hot topic at the moment because we're in the
TRT era.
we're in the era of longevity, and people are looking at peptides, testosterone, growth hormone,
Basically how not to die.
fucking hair transplants. Like it's like how to look younger, how to feel younger, how to live as long as possible. I think Brian Johnson is. What is he transferring his son's cum into his ass or something? I can't remember what he's doing.
Mate, he spends like $2 million a year.
Yeah, I tell you what, I really.
Although if he was to pay me $2 million a year, you can have my cum sticking up his ass as well. Don't bother me.
The hardest part, getting the $2 million.
I tell you what, I enjoyed his documentary on Netflix.
What was it?
He did a documentary on Netflix of like
What was it called?
I don't know.
I
Can't be that good.
That's
Yeah.
how
Can't
good
be
it was.
that
I forgot.
Yeah, my son and his cum.
But it was like going through like his protocol, his diet, like. But what I liked most about it was I didn't know anything about his background, like what led him to get to that point, and he was like really out of shape, suicidal, depressed, like but like hyper successful in business, and because obviously when you see it on Instagram and stuff, it's like, oh, look at this crazy guy like spending $2 million on his health, and he looks like pale as he's fucking more Dracula than you.
Yeah, I know.
And I was kind of like, oh, like this is a bit OTT, but like as like a whole story, it was actually pretty good.
I tell you one thing I respect about it is that he purely makes his decisions off data. Doesn't he?
Like everything
Crazy.
is just.
Would you say there's some
meticulous.
misinterpretation of data?
Well, he has a team with him who like and analyze it. So how good they
I mean,
are.
there's some crazy shit that he was doing. I can't remember what the name of the drug was, but it was like it suppresses your immune system, and he was like microdosing it, and then so it's like if he got like an infection or something during that time, it's like you'd be in deep shit.
Yeah.
So what's his goal? He wants to live forever.
Doesn't want to die.
Basically,
Yeah.
like when you do those tests of like what's your body's physiological age, it's like he's way younger than his actual age. But
It's quite funny. Me and my wife was watching it, and she goes, "He actually looks worse now."
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
From what I've seen of him,
Yeah.
he doesn't look like he's going to last forever. He looks like he's got about 10 years.
Yeah. Normally, like a good tan is associated with like they look like this is the funny thing. Like if you go on vacation to like somewhere like Greece or something, you see some proper fat bastards like wearing Speedos, but because they're tanned as fuck, they actually look pretty good.
Yeah.
Whereas you see a real pale fat dude in a Speedo, and you're like, oh, but like the tan does wonders. There's a reason why bodybuilders put the tan on.
Yeah.
I was laughing because I can't remember the exact time. Like his morning routine is like 3 hours. Like fucking hell, mate! I got to get my kids to school and do fucking 20 check-ins.
And that's why you won't live forever.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to testosterone. So let's talk about. I mean, Taylor, I'll lean on you first. Like, what is it for? Why do we need it? We'll talk mainly from a male standpoint because that seems to be the hot topic of like TRT for men.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about reasons why your levels may not be optimal right now and how to kind of optimize them if they're shit.
It's often referred to as a male hormone, although females have it. It's a more male dominant hormone. So females have it in lesser amounts. Females have estrogen in higher amounts, and then males are the other way around. So they'll have testosterone in higher amounts and estrogen in lower amounts. But it's predominantly a sex hormone that's responsible for muscle mass, reproduction, body hair. Just general bodily functions that are more often associated with a man. So obviously, if you see female bodybuilders who take high amount of testosterone, they start to show
talk like
very
this.
masculine traits. Yeah. What's for dinner tonight? Whatever you want, I'll be honest. This is on you, not me.
Oh, you set up. I'm gonna go do the dishes.
Have you seen those reels on Insta where it's like a female, like it'll be like a punch machine, and she like smashes
And then
it,
they running round
and the
like
bloke's there like cleaning all the dishes and stuff like shit. Yeah, so that's the sort of general function behind testosterone. And you often see like a lot of the symptoms of low testosterone that are sort of put out there now. Okay, they can be quite generic. So you've got like reduced energy levels, brain fog, reduced sex drive, loss of muscle mass, added fat mass. Like these are the other common ones. Like reduced body hair.
What would you say are the common things people do that tank their testosterone?
Being overweight. A lot of those symptoms that you're seeing, like they're often associated with just poor lifestyle quality as well. So that's where it can be very tricky to pinpoint it to testosterone. But real common ones I'll see, poor sleep. If someone sleeps really bad, like that will really tank it. And you'll see testosterone peaks in the morning. So if you go to get a testosterone test and they want to see it at its best, they'll get it done. I think you should get the blood drawn before 8 a.m.
Yeah.
So around that like 7 a.m. mark, that's when you're going to see a testosterone at its peak. So if you're sleeping like barely anything, it's going to be peaking down here, and it's just going to titrate down throughout the day before it then tries to go back up again, and then it will titrate down. So sleep is definitely one.
Mine must be rock bottom with kids, huh?
Yeah. Although you're on 3, so it seems to be doing all right. It seems to be enough.
Hey, the old boys work. Eh?
But
He's in overdrive.
you made a good point though. Like you're talking about like stress levels, poor sleep, being overweight.
That's one I see. That the weight gain one.
Yeah.
Really, really common, because what you get is the enzyme. What is it? The enzyme that, as a male, we produce testosterone and then we convert to estrogen. But the enzyme that is sort of responsible for that conversion is predominantly stored in body fat. So as you just accumulate higher levels of body fat, then you're just converted more and more over. So then, and that gives a negative feedback to the hypothalamus, and then you end up just having a lower amount of tests.
Something a lot of people struggle with as well. Chronic stress that suppresses testosterone production.
Yeah.
But I think like the thing with especially social media and stuff now is like people are majoring in the minors of like, don't drink from a plastic bottle, or like I think Paul Saladino made a post of like Lululemon, like the material. It's like, oh, if this gets in your system, it's like hormone disruptor. It's like, if you see a good ass, it's a hormone disruptor. It's like your test levels jump up. Like if you're stressed, it's a hormone disruptor. Like your hormone levels do this all fucking day. And I think people they no different than weight trends, like weight fluctuations. They'll be like, oh, like, don't eat this food. It's going to impact your weight. It's like, yeah, because it fucking weighs something. Like, but when you zoom out far enough, it's like, it's clinically insignificant. And this is where let's just say drinking from plastic, you could read a study and it's like, it lowers your testosterone. When you actually look at the data, it's clinically insignificant.
Yes.
Like you'd be like, oh, like their levels went from 520 to 510. And it's like, well, a bad night of sleep could take you to 300.
But that's they're not controlling for all the variables either. They're going, this person drinks from plastic bottles, this person doesn't drink from plastic bottles. But it's like, well, what were their sleep quality like? Was one of them lifting weights, one of them not?
Do they eat protein?
Yeah, was one of them
protein?
Was one of them working long hours, one of them wasn't? Is one of them a father, one of them not? It's like they don't break all that stuff down and take into consideration all the variables. They just go, plastic bottles are not plastic bottles.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like people who worry about drinking out of plastic bottles.
It's going to lower your testosterone more by saying to someone, you shouldn't drink from plastic.
Yeah.
Then I think you pussoir. Like you definitely have low testosterone.
Just because you think about that stuff.
I honestly feel like people who worry about stuff like that, they're almost like avoiding the real problem. Like they may be drinking alcohol on the weekend.
Yeah.
Probably out of a plastic bottle.
Yeah. Well, I always like to go back to what a doctor asks. In the UK, particularly because of the way the national health system works, they haven't got a bias in terms of the service that they give you. It's like they just have the service that is the best service that they can offer. And if you go into a doctor and be like, I can't get a boner, He doesn't go, do you drink from plastic bottles? He doesn't ask that question because it's likely not relevant.
Points at your leggings. Are they Lululemons?
Yeah. Hold on a second.
There's your problem.
Yeah, fucking take them off. Are they Lululemons? They don't ask questions that aren't relevant.
Yeah.
They only ask the relevant questions. So what they might ask is, do you smoke? What's your blood pressure? They might ask, how often are you sleeping with your partner, male or female, or son in
Brian
Faye's
Johnson's
case.
case.
Four
Brian
times a day.
Johnson's case. Yeah. And then they'll go, okay, well, maybe we should look at getting a blood test done to see how things are looking. So it's like there's not one point they ask those questions. And if they were so important, then why aren't they asking them?
Yeah. Do you feel like it's like people who, like I said, people who drink worry about stuff like that is because they're masking another problem?
It's an easier thing to
Point the finger at.
change.
Yeah.
Buying a, I don't know, like a metal bottle or whatever.
It's
is
$6
It's
online, you solve the problem.
It's much easier
Yeah.
than losing £50.
Yeah.
Like, and
Because
so
they feel better about themselves. Oh, I just bought a glass bottle now.
Yeah.
Whereas and they'll still keep drinking like their alcohol and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's a much easier problem to solve, but unfortunately, probably not going to make a difference.
Yeah. Like I had the conversation with someone before, and they had low testosterone, and they were probably like 40 pounds, 50 pounds over their body weight that they should be. And they were like, oh, I'm thinking about cutting out my Diet Coke because of the potential effect of sweeteners on their testosterone levels. And all I said, I was like, we have the evidence out there to suggest that sweeteners can impact testosterone is weak. Like there's some really, small studies that have shown a bit of something, but then the quality of those studies can definitely be called into question. But then we have real good evidence to be like, if you're overweight, then you're definitely, it's a likely culprit of a reduced testosterone level.
Yeah.
But now we also have evidence to suggest that sugar-free beverages can support someone's ability to lose weight. So how about we just keep the Diet Coke in, lose the weight, and see if because that's the big rock that you should address first, rather than going, oh, well, maybe it's because then you pull out the Diet Cokes, you're on the full sugars, you gain even more weight, and your testosterone's down in the toilet again. So it's, it's looking at these small things, and then was it just too close to the forest, you can't see the trees.
Yeah. It's like when we talk about coaching, isn't it? Like you look at the low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Now I think because then like the TRT kind of comes in, and because we have clients that use TRT, and my previous view was always kind of like, well, let's do as much as we can without going down that route. And then if we still want to explore it, or if things aren't as optimal as ideal, when we've, fixed your nutrition, we've got your sleep dialed in, hydration's good, training's good, body composition's good, and it's still low, then then we would look at it. However, I would also say now, it's not a bad idea to use that in concurrent with changing all those things at the same time. Because a lot of times it could be some guys will have lower testosterone, and it's not a case of like X causes Y. It's almost like a bit of a cycle, because if you have low testosterone, then you are going to be more tired, and your training is going to be less. You're going to lose muscle. Then because you have those things, then your testosterone gets lower, and it's like this.
You're in this
and so sometimes it's almost like, well, let's put a stop to that and get the levels kind of back to where they should be, whilst we kind of address those things. And so I don't want to say like you shouldn't do those things. You should focus on these things first, or vice versa. I think it's really dependent on the person. No different than when we're talking about GLP-1s. Like for some people, you could say, nope, we do everything first that we can, and then we implement a GLP-1. Other situations, you do them both at the same time. So it's a bit of a, not a gray area, but I think it's very situation dependent.
Yes, I think so. Like one conclusion that I came to with a client that we had is, rather than going on TRT to address the issue, because then that can impact your ability to produce your own testosterone in the first place itself. So he actually ended up going for a clomiphene.
Yeah.
So obviously that negative feedback loop that I was talking about from the estrogen, as the estrogen goes up, that basically signals to the brain, I'm producing enough, so you don't need to make any more testosterone, and that's how they regulate each other. But what the clomiphene does is it inhibits the receptor that gets that signal. So it's not getting the signal of you're making enough. So then the signal to keep telling your nuts to keep producing, it just keeps on firing. But then if you remove that, all it does is just, the thing that was blocking the receptor just stops. So there's no it doesn't inhibit your body's own ability to produce. So then it's like, oh, well, now I can bring in the clomiphene to increase my testosterone levels. Will it do it as effectively as a injectable testosterone would do? Potentially not. But at least the recovery from that is way more straightforward.
Yeah.
So at least it's going to get enough to a point that you can now address the lifestyle factors better. And then if you want to pull the clomiphene eventually, then that's something you can do as well.
I think it's important as well, like, because one, if you're experiencing those like symptoms like you mentioned of low testosterone, like one, you need blood work to look at the objective number as well, but also you do have to look at the symptoms in conjunction, because
100%.
there are people that are functioning low testosterone and they feel great, but the numbers look terrible. And so maybe there's something, it's like, well, from a health standpoint, we need to get those levels up, even though you feel okay.
I would say that was more like me. Like my levels were pretty low, but symptom wise, I was
pretty good.
sort of.
So then, you know, I know of guys where, you know, their levels are in like the 400 or 500s and they feel like shit.
Yeah.
And you get them up to like the 900s and they feel great. And so it's going to be very person dependent on where that kind of ideal level is. I think from like once you've kind of, you know, got body fat percentage in a decent place, resistance training's there, diet's good, you know, getting some saturated fat in the diet as well, you know, like optimizing anything you can from a lifestyle standpoint, then like as far as like natural supplements go, I really haven't seen any that have been like, let's try that first, you know, before we, you know, like what was the most popular one when we were young, like Tribulus,
Tribulus,
yeah, and like it was like because it was like almost like a Bulgarian name, and it's like, oh, these lifters take it, and it's like it's complete bullshit.
No, the lifters are taking Anadrol 50.
Handfuls of Dianabol, but it was like those like natural test boosters. They really, even if again, maybe statistically significant in research, but clinically insignificant.
Yeah.
Like, again, like, oh, they took their levels from 450 to 500. It's like, what does that mean in reality? Fuck all.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you double it, but even then you double it, someone goes from 200 to 400, it's still fucking low.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it matters about the absolute number, like versus like, this is the thing, it's like increase your testosterone by 10%. As a marketing ad, that sounds great. But in reality, like 40 nanograms a deciliter is dick all.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I want to be like 4x your testosterone levels or something.
Hey, you go to the doctors, they aren't giving you those supplements. They're giving you TRT.
No. It's hard as well, though, to gauge, because it's like, what is the reason you've got low testosterone? Because it's like some people have got low testosterone just because their plums are whacked. Like their plums are just completely, by plums I mean your nuts, are completely washed. So no matter what those products are doing, the actual things that are going to produce the testosterone are dead.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, well, they're going to need a synthetic testosterone put in. Just like, again, with like clomiphene, it's like clomiphene is going to inhibit the sort of feedback loop. But if the nuts are shot, Like then they, no matter how hard they're working, they can't work very hard. So you need an alternative. So you need a therapeutic dose
of
testosterone.
Hashimoto's. It's like if your thyroid's gone, there's no amount of iodine supplementation or, you know, like foods and things that are going to improve that. It's like your gland is fucked.
Yeah.
And so it's like that's when you're on synthetic thyroid medication forever.
Yeah.
So these studies, it's like, again, like they might say, oh, this product did this. And it's like, yeah, but those guys were just like, they were a bit overweight. Or like they just weren't sleeping that well. So it just, because then it's like, oh, the product actually improves your sleep. And by getting better sleep, the testosterone went up. It didn't actually stimulate testosterone production. It just improved sleep quality.
Yep.
So like all this, there's a lot of misleading info that goes out there with those sups. And you're a bit like, again, doctors aren't prescribing it. So
Yeah.
There's a reason. And I can tell you, they probably make a bigger markup on subs because they cost piss all to make.
Yeah. I think like when it comes to body composition, like it's almost like a curve where when you get to around that kind of like 10% body fat, that's probably where like you optimize your body fat levels for testosterone. And then when you get leaner, they can come down again.
Yeah.
You know, because then it starts to become almost a bit of a survival kind of mechanism where it's like, we ain't in the position to reproduce right now. We need to conserve energy. Like we're going to pull back on calories from a hormone production standpoint because we need those calories to just move. And so it's almost like your internal system starts to kind of shut down a little bit.
I said that was one of my biggest regrets. I wish I got my blood work done before I started my prep for bodybuilding and after, because I was getting all the symptoms.
Yeah.
Like my old boy stopped working.
Yeah. So basically, for context, you got so lean, as you said, your old boy was just dead.
Yeah.
Dead.
But
dead
then
to the
equally,
world.
it's quite transient, and that when calories and
Yeah,
body fat come back up,
Yeah,
then it all comes back.
And again,
couple of pizzas, he's ready to go again.
yeah. And again, I can't prove that because I didn't get the blood work done, but I'm pretty confident if I did.
But just in that context, it's like if I did a study on Ryan, I could have said pizza is a solution for erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
Because it's like he was having it as a result of low body fat levels. I gave him pizzas and now he's ready to go again. So again, it's like it's so misleading in terms of the information that they put out there. Which is when again.
But it's exactly what you said. Like if it's like, say you start supplementing with zinc and magnesium before bed, and then you get a really good night's sleep, and then you get your blood work done in the morning and your test levels are higher, then I could say ZMA increases testosterone.
Yeah.
But there's so many other like variables to it. And that's like the body doesn't work in singular kind of pathways and stuff. And so that's why research is so hard to kind of like evaluate and say, does this have any practicality when we factor in everything else? Because it's so hard to control all the variables in a study. You know, unless you've got people in a lab for months on end, which again, ethically you really can't do. It's so hard to get those studies. And like we were saying, a lot of studies are done on they use students, as their kind of like candidates, and they're the most fucking useless people. It's like they'll lie, like especially with like nutrition interventions. It's all self-reported, and they're not monitored very closely. So it's always a bit kind of questionable.
Hey, we didn't lie on our thesis, did we?
God, done for plagiarism. For mine. But,
so in terms of if you were dealing with someone now, like let's be a little bit more specific in terms of the lifestyle adjustments you can make. So if someone comes to you and they're like, right, before I'm considering going on TRT or I'm considering going down the medical route, what can I do with my lifestyle specifically that is going to potentially help my ability to produce testosterone?
First one is going to be drop body fat if they need to drop body fat. That's going to be like, and again, that's going to take some time, but that'll be the first.
Let's just go off a body fat percentage, get to between 10 and 15%.
10 and 15.
Resistance training?
Resistance training is going to be the next one.
3 times a week?
3 times a week, resistance training. Sleep minimum 7 hours.
Yep.
Ideally closer to 8 or 9.
Yeah, what did they say? 7 to 9 hours or something
7
like
to
that
9.
on average?
Making sure that there's some stress management in place. Because I'd never say to someone like, let's try and get your stress levels down. Like, life is stressful. It's let's build your skill set up to manage stress more effectively. So even if the stress is the same, you perceive it as less.
It's like increase your tolerance to like frustration.
So make sure we've got some good stress management kind of things in place. Make sure the nutrition is in check from a macronutrient standpoint.
Like
Vitamin
some decent fats and stuff.
Vitamin D, I would get a blood test done. Let's see where the Vit D is sitting. If that's deficient, then that may be having an effect. So there's all these things. But once you've addressed all those, and testosterone is still coming in at 300 nanogram per deciliter.
One more, which is common. People drink alcohol quite a bit.
Oh gosh,
that's a huge one.
But again, I haven't looked at the research specifically on alcohol. I know that people who do drink more alcohol will often have a lower testosterone level.
But then,
is that because of the inhibition of sleep?
Yeah, it's like they're not sleeping; they're sedated.
Yeah,
but then also, if you drink a lot of beer or something, are you the same person that watches their protein intake and works out frequently and
probably
does their aerobic work? It's like, so again, how do you separate it?
Yeah. But all those lifestyle factors we know will play a quite significant role. So if you're addressing all those and it's still low, well, then where would you go then?
Then I would probably
go down to the local gym, find Big Dave.
Big Dave, draw it up. And
Dave, fix me.
Get some of the good stuff out of the bathtub.
I think the and Clomiphene will probably be the first kind of route before taking synthetic testosterone.
What you find is Clomiphene on paper generally does work pretty good. Like it does raise numbers well. The only issue with it is from a symptom solution standpoint, it doesn't seem to have the same impact. And I don't know why that is, but people find that they, like Clomiphene, they look great on paper, but they were like, I'm still dealing with these symptoms. Whereas when they go more for the it's exogenous, isn't it? Testosterone. Then they find that the symptom management is much, much better.
Yeah. Then I think if you touch on the kind of the methods of what's typically prescribed in terms of testosterone, you're going to have injections, gels, and pellets. They tend to be the most common 3. Out of the 3, I would always lean on injections. I think from gels, absorption rates. It's quite hard to measure accurately. You know, you can't, you know, if you rub against your spouse in the bedroom, then they're going to absorb it as well.
You've got more control with injections, haven't you?
Well, that's
I'd
the
be
thing.
fine with that. My missus don't talk to me. So, no problem,
You sleep in separate rooms. It's fine. But
wasn't there one where a guy, he had a child, like a baby, and the baby was developing early signs of puberty. And it was because he was getting the crossover from his testosterone was going onto his baby's skin as well.
The thing is, like, gels, what if you sweat and stuff? You don't know how much.
well, that's the thing. And like different people's skins, you know, if you've got dry skin, like different things like
that's
that.
it. They say when you take it, you can't shower, you can't train, you can't
Oh, you
go
don't
in a
do that anyway,
sauna.
mate.
Yeah, easy.
But
Put it in my hair.
pellets, again, because they're so slow acting. If you're experiencing symptoms, there's nothing you can do other than ride it out.
Dosing wise, it's quite hard to manipulate short-term
you
dosages.
basically have this really kind of like slow peak
build up and peak.
whereas with injections it's going to have a much shorter half-life and you have much more control. But again, you look at the practicality of it, like, well, do I want to inject myself multiple times a week? And then, like we were talking about the other day, like if someone is a bit clumsy and they don't understand hygiene, they drop their syringe and then they get an infection. And so anytime you inject yourself, you are exposing yourself to a potential of getting an infection. So like all of those things. But I think even when you add up all of the pros and cons, I would still lean towards injections just to be able to modulate stuff based on, you know, you get your blood levels done, they look good, or you're experiencing side effects, you can pull back, you can adjust things quite quickly. But again, it's you know, financial consideration. You know, there are other health consequences of taking that as well that you have to be aware of. It's a much larger conversation than just like, your test levels are low, let's get you on some sauce.
Yeah, I think clomiphene specifically it's a good one because it doesn't inhibit your own ability to produce sperm as well. So from a fertility standpoint, it actually enhances your ability. So that's especially if you're around the age where children is a consideration. I think clomiphene is definitely the smarter route to go down, because whereas injectable testosterone or the creams or the pellets, they're going to actually have a negative impact on semen parameters. So I think that's definitely a better route to go. Again, that's not saying like if you are on testosterone, then just have a way with it, because I've seen lots of people who are using it who do end up having kids at the same time. So, but yeah, if fertility is a concern or something that you want to maintain at the moment, well, then definitely going down the clomiphene route again is going to be the smarter option for you. But if that's not a concern anymore, so you're past the age of where you intend on having children, well then, that's no longer a concern.
I think if you are going to go down that route, like you said, it's managing expectations, seeing what the pros and cons are, and weighing her up.
But yeah, I think first things first, get the lifestyle things in place first. Because again, it's easy to say, oh no, I'm okay with injecting myself, but it's like you've never done it before. So now you think you're going to be fine.
And I've had a few clients where they've been about 3 weeks in and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And you know, in that situation, it's like, well, you've only done it for a short stint, you'll be fine. But it's, you know, you have to consider those things long term. And then the financial one is a big one, because, you know, we say, like, you know, once you're on, you're likely going to be on for a long period of time. The worst thing that can happen is that you run out, you know, and then you forget to get your prescription or whatever, and then you've got this big fluctuation where now your nuts aren't doing anything, your levels just tank, and you feel even worse than before you even started. And so I always kind of have that conversation with clients where it's like, keep a bit of a reserve, you know, and like in case you change doctors and you have to get blood work done again, and you know, that kind of like the fluctuations can have more an effect than the overall levels.
You feel worse than when you started and you've got smaller bollocks.
There you go. All of the downsides, none of the upsides. but no, I think like we summed it up pretty well. Like, I think the issue most people have is they're majoring in the minors, you know, looking at those things which may or may not have an impact, but we know they don't have as much of an impact as those bigger kind of rocks, like you mentioned, like sleep, stress, nutrition, body fat levels, things like that. Once you address those things, you know, if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, you know, you can look at, you know, certain items of clothing and plastics and things like that. Personally, I don't want to, like, once you go down those kind of rabbit holes, like it's never ending.
You'll just never give up the Lululemon.
No, I love Lululemon. The Orient Lululemon.
I think if you are going to go down that route, at least do it under the guidance of a medical professional.
And well, I would say the other thing as well is, like, if you're gonna shit on microplastics and stuff like that, like, at least do some testing yourself. Like, look at your levels and have an objective measure. Because a lot of times people say like, oh, well, I stopped doing this and it improved this. And I'm like, how did you measure it?
Yeah.
They're like, well, I feel better. And it's like, well, that could be complete placebo or you just made that up. But it's like, at least have some objective measurement. Like toxins. It's like, oh, detox this. It's like, well, did you measure one, tell me what a toxin is.
Yeah.
Like, which one are you talking about? Like, how are you measuring it? Like, did you measure it afterwards? And it's like, well, no, I lost 10 pounds. It's like, because you didn't fucking eat. Like, it's like, there's nothing to do with toxins. It's like, you just drop water weight and gut volume. But yeah, I think like having those objective measures, get your levels checked frequently. If you're over the age of, I want to say like 30, 35, getting your levels checked once or twice a year isn't a bad shout, just to get a trend. Because even if you do get blood work, it shows you a glimpse in time. You may have had a real stressful week and then you had your bloods done and your test was low. Your test levels may be fine. And so it's important to kind of get a few sets of data, and then you can look at, is it staying the same? Is it going up? Is it going down? And then, address the lifestyle factors. And then once they've been addressed, if you're still experiencing the symptoms, then maybe it's a route that you can consider with a healthcare professional.
Well,
awesome.
With or without a healthcare professional,
or Big Dave.
That's up to you. But we recommend
depending on your finances. Yeah. But thank you as always for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTunes. I did it again. YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. And we'll see you next time.
If you love this show, please like, share, and leave us a 5-star review so that we can help more people. I'm John Madsen, Superhuman CEO, reminding you to always go get what's yours.